Thus far, we had pretty interesting conversations, and this conference feels very different from the one last year, where we're talking about a lot of the people analytics subjects this time around and getting even more technical. And what I'm seeing is that we're sort of going through the themes around the overall view of the people analytics and then starting to think about and diving into details as we are about to do into specifically data governance and data management. So we have another fireside chat, and I brought coffee in here, so I hope that our speaker is also going to bring a cup of coffee. And the talk is entitled Data Governance and Management, Boost the Performance of Your People Analytics Program with Improved Data Governance, Integrity, and Retrieval. Yes, the question of how to organize and store and protect the data is one of the many organizations are currently struggling and starting to tackle, as we found out earlier from the panel, speaking with Heidi. So today I want to invite Dr. Max Bakkaloglu to join me on stage right now. And there she comes. While she's making her way over here, and we're going to sit on these chairs, Max is a senior manager of people analytics and technology at Arc'teryx Equipment, and building out the people analytics program for the first time for them, pretty much. So before that, she worked at GE as a people analytics leader for multiple years globally, tackling many of the challenges that organizations are facing today from the people analytics perspective. So that is building out the entire infrastructure, making sure that the data gets integrated, and then actually driving the insights from the people analytics. Max also holds a PhD in management, emphasizing organizational behavior from Carleton University. So how are you, Max?
I am doing good. Thank you so much.
All right. So, Max, are you ready to talk some data governance and data management?
Yeah, let me take a sip.
All right, sounds good. So we talk a lot about data governance and quality in particular, and we already mentioned on the quality of data that goes into our model, and that's absolutely critical. But everyone defines these terms differently. So what does data quality mean to you? And if you could draw a little bit on your experience from GE as well as Arc'teryx, which are two very different organizations overall.
So if you take a step back, like how we have the data first, how we produce the data first, right? So everything is about like building the frameworks and then keeping the data, storing the data, and auditing the data is part of this data governance. How I see it and then how it relates with people analytics to me is that most of the time, HRIS teams are responsible for designing the processes and doing the audits maybe as well. But people analytics is an integral part of this because they can bring, people analytics team can bring the knowledge about building the logics and maybe automating the audit process, etc. So that's why these two things are integrated with each other. And at the same time, sometimes we are focusing much on, doing the cool stuff, right? We want to do some maybe predictive analytics projects, etc., from people analytics side. But we should always keep in mind that, data quality is a vital part of this. So we shouldn't skip that, element at the very beginning. So what we did in GE, and at the same time at Arc'teryx too, we always had the audit processes. Things like, especially for some fields like legal or payroll-related ones, you can build a scorecard type of thing and then build a framework, and at the same time run these audits. Frequently, could be monthly or bi-weekly here in Canada especially, to make sure that you're paying, for example, the right amount of things to people, right? But some of the fields could be like a little bit nice to have. For example, it may not be linked to any legal stuff, maybe location, and it could be very nice to have data to you. So in this case, you may not have that information in your audit process on a monthly basis, but you can be doing it for quarterly. So long story short, these two things are like integrated with each other, like data quality, data governance, and people analytics, even though they are completely separate things, but are vital for each other.
And what is the difference between kind of working in a huge organization like GE when it comes to data governance and a much smaller organization like Arc'teryx?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter. It's all the time. It's important if you want to have meaningful data and meaningful analysis, and if you want to provide meaningful insights to your company. But how you deliver could be a little bit different because, for example, in big organizations, you may have a data lake already. So you can have this audits in a more automated fashion, whereas in small companies, maybe you don't have that data lake or data source. That's why maybe you need to manually run the data, pull the data, and then update your scorecards or dashboards or things like that. But in the bottom of these two things, it's all the time important. It doesn't matter if it is small or a big company. The method could be a little bit different.
Yeah, and I would imagine that in a smaller company, it's also going through that challenge of convincing the right stakeholders that this is something that you need to do right now before it becomes evident that you must have done it several months ago or years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I never had any experience like convincing. I never had any hard time to convince people that we need to clean data because, like, if there's any problem with the data quality, everyone knows it and everyone wants you to work on that one. But yeah, it may not be very visible from business side because it's like a little bit behind the screen thing, right? Behind the scenes, you're working on cleaning up the data, etc. But then at the end, maybe they will not realize from the senior level, for example, they may not realize whether your data quality improved or not clearly. But people appreciate it when they see small things, like when they see their location name is correct in Teams, or when they see their department names incorrect in one of those in Workday or things like that, right? So they slowly start appreciating it. At the same time, you will always know that as people analytics group especially, if your data is not correct, whatever you do, like any predictive analytics, you will know that the output, the algorithm will not work or will not be good enough, right? So you will always know that, even if the senior leadership team may not understand it in the same way as you do, because you are in the core of that business and then core of that job, and then you know the importance of it. So it's a little bit our role to define it, but I don't know, your roles. But how I see is it's a collaborative thing to me. Data quality is everyone's responsibility, not people analytics, not HRIS. But HRIS could be like a gatekeeper to make sure that we have the right processes and tools in the systems, and they may know what is right and what is wrong. So what I mean with that is since they're designing the systems and processes, they may know if the field should be X versus Y. People analytics may not know this because usually we see the end results and then try to build the reports on analysis based on that, right? So that's why it's a collaborative thing. And so when designing these campaigns in the organizations, I always recommend that data quality is everyone's responsibility, not just one person. But HRS could be like a gatekeeper to make sure that we have the all good data in the system, and people analytics can work together to show the discrepancies or inconsistencies or whatever language that you're using or flags, so that HRS team or the HR business partners can go and fix those errors.
All right. So one of the questions that comes to my mind, and we started this conversation a bit earlier with Phil talking about analytics for analytics. How do you measure good quality data?
That's tricky because sometimes you know it. So I'm going to give you an example. If you're talking about bonus plans, so you usually, for example, in that case, and in both companies that I had, there were always rules around that, right? So you know that just making up a professional band employee should get 5% bonus or 10, or lead professional should be like 15, right? If you know those rules, then you can build the logic in Tableau or Power BI, doesn't matter, and then should show those in consistencies. Then you can measure if there is something wrong in it or not. But when we do those type of work, sometimes HR business partners are coming up with some creative solutions saying that, oh, there are some exceptions, right? Yeah, there could be some exceptions, we know that, but I wouldn't suggest filtering them out. I always want to see them as exceptions on a dashboard or a scorecard because it will always remind us that, oh, there is something wrong here. Maybe we should standardize it with all other processes. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, but if we filter them out, we will never see it. So that's the problem that I've seen. So that's why I always recommend that, even if it's an exception, I still want to see it on the dashboard, and I can flag it or tag it or mark it as an exception, and then I will know that it's an exception. But in terms of building the targets for ourselves, for legal stuff, of course, it should be 100%. Things like related to payroll, legal, compliance, integrity-related topics and fields, and we have a lot of data points, right? So it's hard to target 100% for all of them. But at least, you prioritize those things. Like I would suggest, definitely the mandatory ones, like 100% compliant. And then for the others, it's up to you. But I would again suggest, do not share that target with the broader group, because when you say that, oh, we're targeting 95% data quality, then they will say yeah, maybe I want to be in that 5% group, so that I don't want to collaborate with you, right? Because sometimes you are not the one, not sometimes, most of the time you are not the one who knows which data is right or wrong. You need someone to show you the way. For example, how would you know as a people analytics professional, for example, if the employee's location is wrong or right? We never know it. Usually, the employee face, the HR roles knows it. So that's why you're having this conversation with HR business partners or coordinators. So you need to work on collaboratively with those teams, and so you're going to take their time as well, right? So that's why all the time. Try to target, the 100%, because you will always have exceptions. You will always have, someone not giving you the right answers, right? So that's my suggestion. I don't know.
So 100% for data quality?
100% for data quality, especially for, the legal ones, definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. And for establishing the data governance and data management practices more generally, what are some of the best practices that you have seen and that you have adopted thus far?
Yeah. So I always worked with scorecards. Right now we're doing the same thing as I mentioned, if there are things that you can define with rules, then you can build the logic and then create a dashboard and then show these inconsistencies, right? So when it becomes a little bit trickier when you don't have the rules. For example, if you know that in just HR function, based on a function, if the employee's function is manufacturing, that employee should be in X location. If you know this is clear, then it's fine. You can create an automated dashboard and a scorecard. But if it's not that clear, it's going to be harder for you to do it. And then we do manual checks, clean up for several things. Sometimes there are some pending items in people's workday inboxes, or even those things are you need to push sometimes to make this cleanup as well. So we run monthly audits, and we did the same thing in GE as well. So we want to make sure that every data point is clean. But without having any audit process in place, I feel like no one cares too much about data quality in the organization. So you need to remind people that that's an important topic. Here is the report. Here is the areas that I need your help. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of data points, but you can't focus on each one of them. So you need to prioritize those things for yourself. What we did is all the time, working collaboratively with HR business partners and then other key stakeholders, saying now what's important to you, which data points is important to you, and you can also use that, ask that question to yourself as well, thinking about your maybe future needs, future analytics needs, saying that, again, I'm making up, but if you want to focus on attrition prediction maybe model, and then you're thinking about some data points which could be relevant to you, then maybe you can prioritize those fields first for the cleanup, right? And after that, you'll need to prioritize those things and then define the roadmap for you, because it's a journey. So it will not happen at night, just one night. So you need to build this roadmap and at the same time make sure that you're prioritizing this a part of other 10, 20 projects, because it's like business will always go on and you will need to work on some other analytics projects as well. But when you're doing this at the bottom, slowly, one by one, just focus on data quality as well.
Yeah, so 100% make sure that you're partners with HR business partners and then take small steps one at a time. And as you have improved the data quality within those organizations, what are some of the insights that you were able to start deriving from the data that you're producing now?
So that is the dashboard that we built in terms of the scorecards. It's evolving a lot. So each and every time we are adding more and more data quality topic there. And then we are sharing it with, for example, our HR business partners on a monthly cadence, saying that these are the things that we covered, these are the defects that we are seeing, and this is the new data that we are prioritizing. So we are sharing that information with them openly so that we can get more feedback from them. So it's an ongoing thing. And what I feel like is that, when you have this conversation openly with your stakeholders, especially HR business partners and coordinators, at the very beginning, they may not be super willing to help you on that one because it's It's messy, dirty job, and it's behind the scenes. It just no one wants to deal with it. But when they start to see the results, and then you can make it like a big thing, kind of like maybe a campaign. And if you have an executive sponsor, that would be even awesome. So with that support, you can maybe launch this to get more insights from the organization.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge to convince the right people to roll up their sleeves and help with the data management.
Yeah.
So with that, questions from the audience? Data management, data governance. Yeah, there you go. One right here. If you could introduce yourself and let us know where you're from.
Hello, hi. My name is Soha. I work for HelloFresh Canada, if you guys have heard of it. So very interesting that we have to collaborate with the HR business partners, but at times we also have to get the data from the employees. So for example, we are rolling out Workday, the diversity data is not completed. Would you suggest any strategies for getting that data from the employees? Like what can we do? What actually works from your experience? Something, any ideas?
Yeah, diversity data is a little bit tricky. It's not something that you can get that information from HR business partners. Could be like, and we'll be also doing that as well in our companies, that you need to kind of like, again, have another campaign with employees saying that they can, you need that information for X, Y, Z, and then you need to clarify that what you're going to do with this data. So some countries, for example, you are not allowed to collect that data from the employees. And that's why you need to anonymize that information, right? So we are thinking about maybe using Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey or something like that to collect that data anonymously, because we don't care who is what, right? We just want to understand our, the breakdown of the data. But in those cases, if you want to keep it in Workday, for instance, you can definitely explain why it's important to you and what you're going to do with this data. then after that they can provide that information to you. Otherwise, they'll be like, okay, so what? Why I'm entering this data? How should I feel safe, right? Especially once back at GE, we were talking about collecting the ED&I data, and then we were planning to use one of those survey tools that we were using in-house. So that tool had also ability to anonymize the data, but then when we shared that idea with a couple of employees as a focus group, they said that I wouldn't feel safe still, like, because maybe that survey tool is in-house. Maybe you can track it from the servers, and then you will know who answered what, right? So that's why ED&I metrics are like, sometimes could be a little bit hard to collect because they may not feel safe that you're not going to do something, bad with that data. That's why Workday may not be super the best place for each and every ED&I metrics, and I think some countries doesn't even allow you to keep it, especially in Europe. GDPR doesn't allow you to do it. So we need to be a little bit more creative to collect that data by using some other maybe third-party tools and explaining them that you need that data to make sure that all your ED&I efforts are, whether if it's increasing the diversity in the workplace or not, then maybe they will collaborate, employees will collaborate with us and then openly provide that information to us.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. What we tried doing is that we kind of had a campaign and we gave a percentage as well. So we gave we need 80% data. We reached the 80, but we're still lacking the 20. So what I'm looking for is that how do we get those 20% people to actually give us, fill those surveys, whether it's anonymous or not. So any ideas around what sort of campaign can we run? Because we tried doing it through the leadership, top down. We had a competition as well, but it's still not working. People are just not giving us the data.
Yeah. We can maybe try to understand why they don't want to share that information. Maybe they don't want to. If they don't want to, that's okay too, right? Because there's always an option to say, for especially ENI, so you're asking gender, as a male, female, non-binary, do not wish to answer.
Yeah.
Do not wish to answer is also an answer. So that's also important. So that could be an indicator for your organization. If you're having all of those, executive sponsors supporting you on that initiative, and then you're having some tools and resources to do that, but if you're still having that gap, maybe there is some problems there deep inside. Maybe they're not feeling okay with sharing that information, and that's absolutely fine too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Another one right there.
Hi, it's LaFanny from OPG, Ontario Power Generation. I really like your feedback on errors report. I was just texting my team about that. My only thing is, you're saying to set the rules in the dashboard. I actually was thinking, why wouldn't we do that in the HR system itself? If this employee or if this job can only work at this location A, it should not even let you pick location B. I feel like that should prevent you from some of the rules, and why wouldn't we do that in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if your system allows you to do that, that's definitely better. So I think it's called a Japanese terminology, pokiyoke. So you can do it, something like that, definitely. But sometimes it's hard to do it because you may have a lot of locations, and then the user may pick one of those ones freely. If you have one or two locations, and then if you tie to that location name with some other attributes logically and configure it in your systems, HR systems, that's absolutely better way to do it. But in our case, in both companies that I've worked on, it was a little bit free. So people were able to pick freely, and at the same time, it comes even from the sometimes job posting. So the job posting was not right, so we sometimes onboarded those people with wrong information. So if you focus on different areas, actually everyone involves in that process, and then there are a lot of there could be a lot of leaks in each and every stages. So that's why those type of methods are mostly healthy than try to fix things after that. So it's more proactive. That's better. But sometimes in some organizations, it's not the case. And then if it's free, then it's going to be like, no, this is not right. You need to flag those things and then show it to people that this is wrong.
Thank you.
All right, so other questions? There's one right there.
What strategy? Oh, I'm Layla, by the way, and I work for Circle. What strategies can be employed to effectively collect exit interview data from employees?
Yeah, what we see is one thing is like usually we do exit interviews, but what I feel is like sometimes those exit interviews are not, employees are not feeling comfortable to share their feedback openly. That's why I felt like collecting the data through survey, like exit survey. So when you initiate the, for example, exit or termination business process, I'm talking about in Workday terminologies, but when you initiate the termination, it sends automatically a exit survey to the employee. I did an analysis comparing these two things, like the exit survey results, responses versus the exit interview responses. There is always a difference in between these two things, even though the same person is answering the questions. The reason for that is sometimes when they're doing it in a survey, when they're alone, they're more open, and at the same time, they feel like they can feel a little bit more comfortable talking about their problem with their manager, for example, right? Whereas they may not feel comfortable when talking about those problems with an HR person, HR business partner during an exit interview, right? So that's why I feel like those type of surveys is a little bit more realistic, and that's why we're collecting that information through surveys, exit surveys, and then showing it by sentiment analysis and everything over the dashboards, and then compare it with the living reason that we collect through the termination business process as well. So it's just like we try to see it in different angles, even though it's not matching all the time. But exit interviews are really useful, especially for understanding why you're losing your talents in a deeper sense.
Yeah, I do agree that exit interview survey have a lot of rich data in there, but sometimes the employees are leaving and they don't have the time or they don't care to leave a true answer to all the questions, which might take them, a few minutes or 20 minutes to complete. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the HR business partner are doing it for them. Mm-hmm. Then when entering the data, sometimes it's not even accurate. How do you improve the data quality around that, and also improve their participation rate? Mm-hmm.
So what we do is, of course, those surveys are optional, not mandatory, and sometimes they don't care. I'm leaving already type of attitudes. But our HR business partners are doing a great job on that one. So they are saying that that information is important for us to improve our processes here for the other employees, right? So when you explain what you're going to do with this data and then picturize it or visualize it in their mind, that helps. Otherwise, they feel like, yeah, it's going to be time-consuming for me. So what it works for me is just, or I also said this, similar things, but it's just like what you're gonna do with that data, and then clarify that with your employees while they're leaving the company, and then try to make it more like a positive way, saying that okay, you're leaving, I understand, but we want to make this workplace better for everyone, for others too. So that's why your feedbacks are so valuable to us. I think that type of approach works really well for us. I mean, some people may not respond it, but you can still get rich data from your employees. So I never had any problem with the participation rates. It's like even you run an engagement survey, so you may not have 100% participation. For example, ours is around probably somewhere around 80, 85 or something. So there's always a room that people may not want to respond to your surveys. If it's engagement, if it's exit, it doesn't matter. But still, you can get some rich data from there.
All right, so this is all the time we have for this particular conversation. I know there's another question, so perhaps you can find Max during lunch and chat about it. But thank you so much, Max. This was a very insightful conversation.
Thanks a lot.